Balcone's first ever year-round bourbon was an inspiration. It all had to work together. A blend of carefully selected ingredients, Texas-sized pot stills, and creative people determined to find the absolute best way to usher a new whiskey along. When you discover how it pairs with a meaningful moment, suddenly the feeling of drinking great whiskey becomes a whole lot more.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Whiskey Neat, spirited conversations with interesting people. I am your host, Kristopher Hart. We are spending the week talking to both Paul Wesley and Ian Somerhalder about celebrity whiskeys, their celebrity whiskey. And I know that word, those two words seem to bother quite a few people. But from what I understand, they've actually spent quite a bit of time blending to create this whiskey. It's not just their name on it. So, and it is interesting because it's a 4-year straight bourbon whiskey that's 80 proof. And there's two ways you can go when it comes to celebrity whiskeys. You could go the heavy route, which is someone like Peyton Manning releasing a $200 bottle, or you can go this route, which is a sub $50 bottle. That is more approachable for someone just getting into whiskey. And from everything I've read and everything I've understood about this journey, it does seem that this is meant to be something new and approachable for someone getting into it, getting into the thing that they fell in love with. Paul Wesley and Ian worked together for almost a decade, and they spent that entire time both on set and off drinking bourbon to get through those long hours, those long weeks. So today I'm going to sit down with both of them to discuss their passion they brought together and just kind of throw at them a couple ideas I have for what they could do next. And as always, this week's episode being brought to you by both Balcones and, of course, Amrut Indian Single Malt Whisky. This year, the International Wine and Spirits Competition gave Amrut Fusion 95 points. Amrut would like to thank the listeners of this show for helping make Amrut a success. Go out and get a bottle today. I prefer this sherry bottle. It's just absolutely beautiful. So without further ado, please join me as we talk to both Ian Somerhalder and Paul Wesley about Brothers Bond Bourbon. Cheers.
By the way, man, congratulations. The show's crushing and has really become this sort of this place for, people to discuss and the name itself, when you mention, oh, hey, I'm doing the show. Oh, really? People just know the show, man. So
sure. Yeah. It's been fun being able to sit down and have a few drinks. At the very least, you guys live interesting lives and the tagline of the show is spirited conversations with interesting people. And you get a few drinks and some people, and it kind of takes that pressure off of talking to a stranger. And
absolutely.
Then a couple drinks in, you're like, dude, we should start a bourbon together.
Well, which is what we did about 10 years ago.
Yeah. So I'm excited. So what we typically do, we'll kind of jump right into the conversation. We'll have a few drinks. I've already poured myself a little something. And what we'll do is let's talk about the bourbon. Let's talk about the difference. I know you've in a few interviews, you've addressed the cringe factor for when people say celebrity whiskeys and how you guys are doing things differently. And especially with the blending, which is a real important part. So you're not just throwing liquid in the bottle. And then we'll kind of roll with it and have a few drinks. And then Paul, you've got your box next to you.
I do. Well, I opened it. It's not a box. I got whatever you sent me.
So
by the way, I already opened them.
Yeah, that's okay. So we'll get to those in a little bit. And then Ian, did you plan? Did you get time to put together a cocktail?
So here's what I was going to do is I've got, obviously so what happened is that Paul and I just shot, we did a whole series of interviews. Our first big press day Paul and I just took on a creative space together. Really cool. It's going to be the Brothers Bond sort of like creative hub. And we migrated every single thing in my home you could use to make a drink with is now at our space. which is kind of odd that my home is devoid of any way of making cocktails. But everything is over there. So the thing about what we have here, I've got my bourbon. I've got one of our cocktail glasses, because Paul, you have all the neat glasses. And I've got some ice, which is all I need for our bourbon. I've got a couple of coupe glasses. I'm sure I could shake something great up. But this was, I didn't realize. So I just called my mail people, and when we went in yesterday, now I see that this package was delivered at 10:19 a.m. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But it hadn't processed yet. So
I feel like I'm witnessing Ian talk to his teacher about why he didn't do his homework.
Yeah.
This is what it would be like.
No, it's right? Okay. Well, so I'll talk to you a little bit about it when we get to Paul's. I think we try to do this little special thing for people that have had such a long and awesome career, and so we'll get to it in a little bit. But one of the things we have is we've got a 3 suggestions of what I think you guys should do next. We took some suggestions. I worked with my buddy Todd, and we created a few poster boards of what other things I think Brothers Bond can do. And we'll have a little fun with it. We'll talk through how this came together. And as far as I know, you guys have only done one video interview. I saw the you did a talk show, but I mean the Cigar Magazine interview was the only like real 15 minute thing I've seen.
Yeah, I think so.
This will be
that's accurate.
This will be about 45 minutes to an hour of us just talking about your whiskey. So I'm excited.
Right.
Dude, that's just unbelievable. I'm closing out some
windows.
Yeah, just to have a better connection. I'm up in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, man, this is really exciting. Thank you for this. My hat's off to you. Toast to you, brother. Cheers, man.
Do you have a glass there, Paul?
You got your Glencairn glass.
All right, so let's jump into this. I'm first of all, I'm very excited. I know this is kind of several months in the making, and the bourbon has been about a decade in the making, right? You guys started talking about this 10 years ago. Where I know you've talked about how you guys got into this together by having a few drinks on set, trying to get through these 60-hour work weeks. But I've never quite heard which bourbons was there a bourbon between you guys? For me, my wife and I, a special whiskey between us, my wife and I got into whiskey together, was Lafroig 18, single malt scotch. What bourbon did you guys bond with at the beginning? What brought y'all together?
First of all, when we drank on the show, our characters drank on the show, right? So, but we were drinking, obviously not bourbon. So we were drinking what was it? Iced tea. Actually, it was like caffeinated.
Season 1, it was caffeinated iced tea.
So we were flying high on caffeine and couldn't sleep at night. And we switched it out season 2 to decaffeinated. But for the record, we weren't drinking on set, but as much as we wanted to. But what did we after shooting or after filming, we kick back? What did we go for, Ian? Because I think we were drinking Irish whiskey, weren't we?
No, initially, remember this, Paul's family's European and Paul's from the East Coast. And so when he got down to Atlanta, he goes, look, man, we all started getting into whiskey, into bourbon. He's like, I haven't really been exposed to this, but I love this spirit. And we used to, you and I did drink some scotch. We bonded over scotch a bit because Paul and I would smoke cigars and we would drink scotch. But it all, it's my crew down there, everyone was bourbon gals and guys, right? And so, for me, I prefer whiskeys that are just so complex and smooth because Paul and I talk about, to be able to pour something out into a glass or just add a piece of ice to it is really what's really special. So I always sort of gravitated more toward first of all, Lincoln Henderson is one of my,
heroes. Angel's Envy. Yeah, absolutely.
And Woodford Reserve and Angel's Envy. There's really nothing else you can say about that man other than what a contribution he made to the bourbon world. So I always sort of gravitated toward those bourbons.
And not to interrupt you, but we were also flying every weekend, and the airline that we were flying, we would always have whiskey on the flight, just A, to get the jitters of flying out, B, to help you just relax or unwind. And they always had Woodford Reserve. So we were drinking Woodford, left and right. I remember that was a big, so I'm glad you said that, actually.
A lot. And then we have a buddy down in Atlanta, one of my dearest brothers. Believe it or not, it's so different than what we do. We're entertainment. He's a bank regulator. He just happens to be super handsome and cool. But he would anytime we'd meet up with him, he would always have a bottle of that. Paul's like, dude, you show up just ready to go. Like, all right, here we go. So he's right, because Delta Airlines has a deal with Woodford. And Paul's not joking. We flew, well, actually it was twice a week, sometimes even more, because you take off and you land, you come back to to Atlanta. And so we drink an inordinate amount of Woodford.
But the boys, like the boys on the show, it was never really stated what kind of bourbon we were drinking, but it was bourbon, And so, to bring it back really quickly, Ian and I, ever since that was written for our characters, this was over a decade ago, I've been talking about creating a bourbon together. So this has been in discussions now for 10 years. And to finally be on a podcast or on your show, talking about this as a reality is very special.
It is really special.
We've talked about this a little in the past with the direction in which celebrity-owned spirits go. There's two ways to do it, right? Like, so Peyton Manning released a bourbon that was $200 a bottle, and that's the short-term launch success. Like, you can launch it off celebrity, you can make a decent chunk of money, but the most popular, the most long-term sustaining spirits brands, tequila, whiskey, are the brands that are more moderately priced and more inclusive of people who don't drink that often, right? So
right.
If they're fans of Paul and they're fans of Ian and they want to try whiskey, this is that whiskey, right? That's that introduction. And I don't actually know for sure, but from what I understand, this is sub 50 in that $50 range.
Less.
Yeah. So that
$39.99.
39. Yeah.
In terms of long-term success, the projections on this the outlook is very positive for you guys, because it like, look at Terramana, the Rocks tequila, $30 tequila. I think the high end stuff is maybe $40. First year sold 300,000 cases. And so the long term
300,000. They sold 400,000. I think.
Oh, well, my apologies.
No, but I'm saying, think of those numbers. Yeah. It's a tremendous amount of volume, I guess.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But those are the brands that tend to show longevity. Is the more affordable, more approachable. Let me introduce someone to. Right. Everyone likes to drink. Well, I mean, not everyone, but the vast majority of the U.S. population. But it's a great way to kind of introduce someone to the category. And what I sent you guys, this is our bourbon. This is the Prideful Goat. It's already sold out, but it's cask strength. It's meant for the people who don't mind drinking 115 proof and not coughing immediately.
Yeah.
And y'all's bourbon is the perfect. It's almost like Basil Hayden's. Have you ever had Basil?
That's right.
Yep. Well, yeah, we drink a lot of Basil.
We drink a lot of Basil. In fact, that was a big inspiration for us.
It was a big inspiration for us. Huge.
Beam's entire goal with that line is the exact same mentality. Let's introduce people to this beautiful spirit.
Yeah, what you're saying is very accurate. I'll just say super quickly, we have Ian and I, and Ian, interject at any point if I'm saying anything that is inaccurate. But our goal was to create a bourbon that was complex enough for someone like myself or Ian. We've been drinking this for a long time, and we know what we like.
Or even you.
Or you, of course, but also approachable. So for someone who doesn't consider bourbon their spirit of choice, but they want to try it, like you said, the price point's good. We want it to be smooth. We want people to drink it like a Basil Hayden, and really just go, oh, wow, I didn't realize dark spirits or bourbons can be so smooth and approachable. And that's what we really, really wanted.
Approachable is an endlessly important aspect of any spirit. You want to get people to appreciate it without, stripping the top 3 layers of their esophagus off.
Right, exactly.
Right, because that, alcohol, listen, we're nothing but biochemical reactors as human beings, but the biochemical reactions that happen in someone's mouth after you put a spirit that's, high alcohol content, you're right. You don't have to burn 3 layers of your tongue and your esophagus off, but if you can, this is what Paul and I talk about a great deal, is that approachability, I guess you could call it. It doesn't matter at the end of the day if you are a connoisseur or not. Something that tastes great, that is nuanced and complex, at the end of the day, tastes great, and it's nuanced and complex. And for us, is that our bourbon?
No, that was me finishing my Indian single malt. But I did pour your bourbon. It's right here. I'm about to
Indian single malt. Let me ask you this. Well, and I'll just finish this really quickly. That we know, and it's for us, whether you're a millennial gal or guy or Gen Z or someone who's in their 50s, whether it's my 80-year-old dad or my 70-year-old mom, to be able to take a bourbon, pour it out of the bottle, and know that when you sip this, it's actually enjoyable, that it's inspiring, makes you feel great. That, for us, is all that matters, because that's what's going to be at people's dinner tables, at the Thanksgiving table, at the Christmas table, around the Christmas tree, at the fishing camp, at the lake, wherever you are. For us, to have an experience with friends and people and family around you and enjoy a spirit like this right out of the bottle or on some ice is gold to us.
Yeah. I'll just say super quickly, it's very early here, but of course we're doing whiskey neat and we got to have some whiskey. And I poured this and I'm drinking it neat. And it's our bourbon. And I got to tell you, I just never get sick of it. And I'm not just saying that. It is so smooth and so I could drink this at 9 a.m. even if I wasn't doing it. And I don't know, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. And people tell us that all the time. Your whiskey is dangerously approachable, dangerously smooth, but really enjoyable. So anyway.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I thought about as I was walking up we're on the 4th floor here at ESPN in Houston. And I thought, it's got to be 9 a.m. for those guys. And it's this whole concept of early day drinking being taboo is mostly an American thing, just like credit scores. Like most of the world doesn't do credit scores.
Right.
It's mostly an American thing. And if you go to Europe, they're like a drink at 9 a.m. is not a problem at all.
Sure.
With that being said, I've not tasted it yet. It smells fantastic.
Thank you.
So this is sourced in Indiana. So I think I know where from.
Yep.
But the nose on it is like just beautiful classic bourbon. I believe you said in another interview this was 4 years old.
It's
4. minimum of 4, but yeah.
Minimum 4. Obviously, it's your second sip that's going to be your real one, because obviously you just finished your other single malt. But that you get you get a little bit of that viscosity, but what we were aiming for is that equal sensory proportion, right? Where all of those grains are expressed over your tongue, over your palate, but you get that nice little kick at the end of just a hint of sweet, and it lingers for a bit, and then it just goes away like a warm, like a handshake or a hug, really. And that for us was important, right? That's everything for us, because you start talking about whether it's day drinking or in the evening or something, to be able to just have a bourbon and then set it down and walk away, and you don't necessarily know you had a bourbon. It's such a great thing. It's so pure.
Yeah, I could have a few of these before I realized I've had a few of these.
Yeah, exactly.
See that nice little how the once you get that little kick down the back end of that hint of sweet and a little bit of caramel note, it almost sort of comes back forward. Do you see what I mean? So it's
one of the things that I love that you guys sent along is this little tasting guide.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the complete process of how to enjoy and experience what's in the glass. It's one of the things that I think I've never seen anything like this. I've seen many celebrity brands. I've seen many people decide to start a brand. I've never seen this amount of effort put into making sure that someone who's enjoying this is knows how to do it without feeling overwhelmed. Because there is this sense of snobbery that happens, right?
Sure.
Where you're like, oh, you're doing it wrong. Well, I'm afraid to do it because I don't know how to do it. And I'm also afraid to ask.
Or I'm embarrassed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
No
and
reason.
we worked with he'll go unnamed, but we have a guy who's really helped us through the process. He's a master blender, and we were asking him all these questions, and at the end of the day, Ian and I, we didn't
world-renowned master blender.
yeah. But at the end of the day, we were talking to him, and Ian and I didn't just slap our names on this bottle. This liquid wasn't presented to us. We created it. We created the mash together, and
like lunatics,
and we created the bottle, and we created the name, and we created the shape of the bottle, the label, everything. And so at the end of the day, one of the things that he said to us was, this is your guys' palate. Nobody can argue, no matter what, this is what you guys love, and you're presenting what you love to the world. And that is so special, and I can't imagine doing this interview with you, Chris, or any other interview, or talking about this brand without having that special connection to it. And I think that's the big disconnect with quote unquote celebrity brands. There's so many of them. They're all slapping their names on tequila bottles and this, that. And what's their story? How passionate are they, and how personal is this product to them? And I think that's what really distinguishes us.
Well, what's crazy to me is, and first of all, thank you for choosing a bourbon, not a tequila. Is the bourbon category is exploding across, and then some. I think in case sales, the Distilled Spirits Council released some data last year that I think in case sales, whiskey sold 3 times the amount, 72 million cases, give or take, whereas tequila is closer to 20 something.
Wow.
So, and you could argue that overall the celebrity brand is a bit saturated, but the bourbon category, with a little bit of love and effort put into it, really makes a difference. And I'm glad that you guys chose bourbon. I'm glad, and honestly, this is cheaper than Basil Hayden's, right? It's 80 proof. Straight bourbon whiskey in the sub $40 category is nothing to scoff at, right? I mean, that's an ideal situation for all.
And it's 4 grain as well.
I mean, obviously you couldn't do a 3 grain at 80 proof really and get away with it, but for oh, sorry, brother, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at
all. Chris, one of the things that this is our flagship, right? Like, this is our baby. And I was just shaking my head earlier. I think I was looking like I was having an internal conflict. I wasn't. It was resonating what you were saying, Paul. And we have to pinch ourselves, right? Like, we can't believe this is our brand because we have put everything into this. And when Paul was explaining that we've blended this whiskey, obviously, Chris, you know this. The art of whiskey is not in the making of the whiskey. The art of the whiskey is in blending whiskey. And the idea that we spent over a year, man, this was over 1 year in my kitchen and my living room with, graduated measuring cylinders all over the house. This was hundreds of iterations, man. Our wives, this was like till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes. Our wives thought we were crazy. They were super supportive, obviously, and they knew we would get it. And I knew we would get it, but at times, I have to tell you, I felt as if we were chasing a ghost, because what we were looking for is that complexity that you just tasted, but at scale, right? If you want to do, there's small batches. Paul and I refuse to do anything. It's all small batch, but you do craft, but it's scale. And for us, I'd much rather, like you said, have a lot of people enjoying this at a price that they can afford than, we want to be inclusive, not exclusive. Yeah. And we're just over the moon, man.
And
our only offering.
Yeah, I was just going to say we have future line extensions, and we have an age statements that are going to be becoming available. But this is our flagship. This is our baby, and there will be age statements though.
The bonded in bond, the 100, the brothers bonded in bond 100 proof version of this is going to be out of this world.
Yeah, we have an 8-year that we're really excited about that we already have. We already bonded it. Yeah.
Well, since you bring that up, let's go ahead and get to our suggestions, and you've already kind of guessed one of them. So we've put together a couple of ideas, mostly fun. There's a serious one I think is the obvious low-hanging fruit, but what would you call an unfiltered, uncut version of this? It would be, the highest proof that came out of the cask. It would be called cask strength.
Yep.
Right.
So our first suggestion is casket strength. Brothers
That's
Bond
great.
Casket strength. It's a high proof version packaged in a casket.
That is unbelievable.
By the way, that during Halloween would really sell out. I'll tell you.
Crush.
It would be huge. It would be huge.
Crush.
Yeah, I've got to slip in some vampire jokes, right?
Come on, dude. That's not even a joke. That is some legit shit right there.
So the great one, the one that's going to really appeal to the nerds, which you just mentioned, is your Brothers Bond bottled in bond, right?
Right,
so
that's
that you guessed, you got a little ahead of the game.
Triple
there.
B.
Yeah, so that's
Bonded
an easy
Brothers Bond.
one of the very first legal fun fact for those listening. The very first set of laws that kind of governed bourbon was in, I believe it was 1897, and it was the Bottled in Bond Act. It was the very first thing, 100 proof, at least 4 years old. So yeah, you guys are there except for the proof, so you can make that happen.
Yeah, man.
And
I like this guy. We should hang out with this guy more often, Paul.
I know.
I'm going to be hitting you guys up when you hit Austin.
No doubt, man.
So now you remember, Ian, me and Paul are a little closer in age, but Ian, you remember those pins back in the day where you would tilt the pin and the ladies,
the liquid.
Yeah, the ladies' dress would come off. So we've got an uncut, unfiltered, undressed version. So as you drink the bottle, you'll see a picture of Paul and Ian here appear shirtless.
What happens when the liquid goes all the way down?
Yeah, so we purposely cut that off, but you guys are wearing jeans, I promise.
Okay.
What if it was just the trunk of the tree?
yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, man, that's unreal.
I think you guys have a lot of directions you can take this and hit all of your audience.
You're a marketing guru.
Listen, you should have seen the ones I pitched Matthew McConaughey. He had this in his book. I don't know if you've read his book Green Lights, but he talked about.
I have the audio book. It's genius.
Yeah, it was so good, right? So he talked about a few moments in his life where he had a revelation that resulted in a wet dream. And so we ran with that. So Finished in Your Sleep was a nice name, a tagline for a bottle of bourbon. But yeah, so you guys can really hit the breadth of fan base with this. And starting with this is the best. I couldn't be, my hat's off to you guys. Like seriously, this is a really good idea.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean,
yeah, and well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, brother. You were Paul was number 2 on the call sheet. I was number 3, which he likes to remind me of all the time. So when he doesn't speak, I let him speak first, even though I'm older.
It's true. No, I actually just got. You know what, Ian? I forgot what I forgot.
Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry, brother.
No, it's all
number 2 and number 3, and that was it. That's you threw me off track.
But I got to tell you, man, and for anyone listening or watching or basically wasting their time with these 2 guests that you guys decided to have on. I'm sure it's just because our team pushed you to put us on the show.
That's right. We got great PR.
We have great PR. But, for us, and I actually it's kind of a segue, but I just had this conversation with my team. For me, what this has done has really grounded me in sort of like my American roots. Right. My mom is half Choctaw Native and half Irish. And so, you know, I grew up, my mom's side of the family, they're Irish. They're Irish farmers. They're all, you know, and so I grew up in an agricultural family. And my dad's side are what you call, they're Cajun, but French. And so on both sides of the family, there was bourbon, there was family, there was agriculture. And for me, that this has done has brought me really back down and distilled, you know, like put my feet back in my American roots. You know, it's like old, cool, like Chevy pickups and dust on our boots. And, you know, there's something
bourbon is the American spirit, right? I mean, there's nothing more American than bourbon as far as alcohol is concerned. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. It's extremely classic. It's iconic for that very reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, man, if you think about it, like just because of the taste profile, you know, it's very, it's warm, but it's yummy. It's sweeter. You know, I grew up, obviously I'm Irish, so I definitely grew up drinking a lot of Irish whiskey, and I lived in New York for a long time and lived in Europe as well. And I'll be the first to show up at a party with a bottle of, you know, super mellow, triple distilled Bushmills and just crush it. Right. I mean, it's like an amazing thing, but this,
shout out to Bushmills. Great bottle.
It's a great bottle. I mean, they've been doing it since 16 something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're the oldest licensed distiller in the world.
And is it really?
Yeah, the oldest in the world. I think I could be wrong, 1400s or 1600s, somewhere in there.
Jeez.
Right. I think I thought it was 1601, but I guess distiller as far as spirits, because I know Stella Artois is, I think, 1367 or something. But brewing. Yeah, I mean, as a distiller, brewer is different. But you know, man, like the sweetness of this. How easily it mixes with virtually everything. But you know, this is just so special for us.
Yeah. And it's like, and our whole thing, and I'll let you get to the next segment or whatever you want to ask, because we talk a lot. But one of the things I'll say is that, you know, we want this to go way beyond Ian and myself and the sort of, you know, obviously we're known from the Vampire Diaries, and of course we embrace that. And that's where the name, it's a nod to our characters. But really, this we want this to be like, this is when people drink this, they experience their own bond. You know, forget about Ian, forget about myself, forget about Vampire Diaries. This is like, we want to bring people together with this spirit. We really want this to like just be about, you know, you're drinking this, you're doing it in good company, and you're celebrating something, or you're creating a bond of some kind, whether it's with your family or friends or whomever. That's kind of the whole ethos of this thing. That's why we started it. And it sounds a little kind of, I don't know, corny, but it's true. You know, we talk about it all the time.
It's something that's talked about quite a bit. I mean, we launched a whiskey festival here about 6 years ago called the Houston Whiskey Social. It was the same concept. It's a common theme throughout the spirits world that sharing a glass with somebody is just as important and just as bonding as sharing food with somebody.
Yep.
You know, eating with someone is truly one of the most purest examples of bonding between two humans. You're taking care of something you need to take care of, but at the same time, you're enjoying each other. And spirits do that. You know, it's not for everybody. Some people can't handle that whole aspect, but there's a reason why it is. Every advertisement you see, every image you see, it's people celebrating and cheersing and bonding.
That's
so
right.
Absolutely. I know it's a nod to y'all's characters, but I think more importantly, it's a nod to your friendship. It's a nod to your relationship. And I think if you wanted to do this was the right way to do it. And so my hat's off to you 1,000%. So
thank you.
Cheers. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cheers. You know, we have our own version of you know, that glass, which obviously that's a patented Glencairn glass. Those are but you know, even just designing out just our own look and feel. And you know, what I was saying about going back to sort of like my, you know, Americana or American roots was also getting back to basics, which is getting back to agriculture by virtue of the fact that we are an agricultural company. You know, you can read it here on our little hang tag, you know, that we want to put our money where our mouth is, right? And where another place that we feel really confident and really, really proud of is that, you know, this as well as we do, man, that the millennial and Gen Z consumer, obviously, because we hit like the tail end of the Gen Z consumer, they want to know that the companies that they are spending their hard-earned dollars with are doing something with that money.
Sure.
And that they are good stewards of their environments, of their communities. And so this give back that we are doing, and we will encourage our partners, and it's a big swing for us. But by helping finance the regenerative movement in this country and ultimately this planet, we know scientifically that regenerative agriculture, large-scale regenerative agriculture, can stop climate change in its tracks and can put climate change in our rearview mirror.
For those who aren't aware, one of the big pillars of this project is that you guys are giving back a portion of the proceeds to regenerative farming. For anyone who doesn't already know that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. And for us, that is a really big deal, right? Because when people say, well, what the hell is regenerative ag? I say, well, regenerative agriculture is using planned grazing methods and agriculture, large-scale agriculture, using growing plants at scale to sequester enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and draw it down and store it safely back in the ground where it belongs. And with that comes more food, better communities, better sequesters carbon, produces oxygen, revitalizes fresh water stores. These are all really big things, and with that comes more food on farmers' tables, farmer prosperity. No one's ever going to argue with you about taking care of the people that feed us and sequestering carbon and producing oxygen and saving.
Yeah, and we felt that as an agricultural company, we felt like we had a responsibility to have that sort of give back component. We felt like if we're going to start a new company in this day and age, feel like that's sort of something that at least for us is a prerequisite.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have. You've got to have that through line. And so we're really proud of that, man. And I think what that does is that it really allows the whole country to, I think right now we have to go into all the specifics of it, but there's just such division and all over the world, right? And one of the things, like you just said, that brings us together is food and drink and experience. And I am confident that we can stitch this country back together through agriculture and food and community. And having a toast together. So
absolutely.
It's just a big deal.
One of the things that, and looking at this, I know you guys kind of settled on probably what was obviously the best name, Brothers Bond, but what were some of the names that were considered that you guys ultimately passed on? I don't think that's been covered in any of the interviews.
We
had a text thread,
which was about 1,000 names.
God.
We had like Brothers Classic, Brothers Supreme, Brothers. Everything was Brothers.
Gross.
Brothers Supreme. I mean, we were just literally just like filling in the blanks, just like thinking of everything,
Yeah. But I remember when we finally came to Brothers Bond, and we both looked at each other and we were like, "That's pretty good."
Well, because it signifies so much, right? And
it's also simple. It's simple, right? So less is more in that scenario.
Well, it's just we want right. Less is more, has to roll off the tongue, has to be catchy, but it also has to not be arbitrary. You can't just come up with some random name. We wanted it to be and really, and then it was about like, oh well, is that taken? Can we get that? Can we get the trademark? Can we get the rights to that? And then sure enough, it was available and boom. So that was it.
Well, and of course it cues you up for that Bald and Bond thing as well. So right. I honestly, I think you guys clearly settled on the best choice. And if you had done Bourbon Classic or Bourbon Supreme, it would not have been the same.
No.
Like it would have
been Stefan's Spit Cup.
No, I don't want that either.
Oh, I want to get into that, man. First and foremost.
So what is this? What are you drinking?
Thank you for I just want to say thank you for sending stuff to us. My people where we process my mail feel awful that they didn't give us this because I.
By the way, this is no joke.
Yeah, it's a beast. But don't worry about it, Ian. Listen, I appreciate it and I understand it's not a big deal. I do want you to enjoy it, and I'll go ahead and kind of give you guys a peek. So what we like to do is we like to send you a couple of bottles to sample, usually like in an unboxing sort of way on the show. I did send you some 15-year-old. This is our product, the Prideful Goat. Same thing, text thread that went through about 1,000 different names. And we thought long-term branding, like what if we opened an Irish bar? Prideful Goat's a good name. It was let's just say that you guys ended up on a better name than we did, but it's 15-year-old Kentucky bourbon at cask strength. I think that one's at 113 proof,
113.8.
Woo,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and that bottle is in your box, and you'll be able to get to enjoy it as well. We sold through that a couple months ago and are currently out. So there's nothing left available.
On that, by the way.
Well,
Good for you, man.
It was much smaller than you think of a release.
Paul, this is the other part of our 8-year samples, which this came in at 108.7 proof.
Oh, so you're already working on that.
Oh, yeah.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
We have a full, I can't go into the details,
We
but
already have it.
we have a full 4-year rollout on our 8 because, people usually do. Well, I want to get back to your bourbon, but, people, it's 8 years, right? So
it's a great year for bourbon. 8 years is a great year for bourbon.
It's a great year because, and it also just happens to be how many years we were on television together.
We did
So
8
1 year in the
seasons of
barrel for
Yeah.
1 year in the barrel for every year we were on air together. But 8 years, great, man, because it's that in between where it's still spirited enough that's not just like jam.
It's not over oaked. Yeah.
It's not over oaked, and that oak. By the way, we love oak. I mean, I could just drink it, like guzzle it. But
Sure.
what Paul and I talked about too was that because you don't have all of that oak sort of blanketing all of those nuances that we love so much about our bourbon, that was a huge piece of it, where you still get all those grain expressions, but it's not just layered in this like giant cashmere blanket of oak,
So you guys have the 80 proof coming. You've got the 8-year coming. What else have you locked in?
100 proof.
100 proof?
Yep. 100 proof, 8-year. And there's a 4-year rollout to the 8-year that once we can get everything done,
Lined up. Yeah.
we'll explain how it works. But it's really a special, this is a special time in our lives, man. I mean, this is wild. But anyway, I want to hear about this. I want to hear about the Prideful Goat. Tell me.
So, I mean, it really, we sent it so you can kind of, enjoy it and taste it. And,
By the way, it's delicious.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's we did the opposite. So we blended we blended them, and they were in 1,000-liter. We blended them in 1,000-liter totes. They started off as barrels, put them in totes. They ended up being 4 or 5, 6 barrels. So we did real small releases in Texas at first, and are working on a long-term nationwide rollout. Cool. And it sold out in a couple days. So everything is gone. And really that's just, we thought, we'd like to put anyone that I talk to that actually enjoys whiskey, I'd love to send them a bottle because I know that they're going to really enjoy it. Sam Hewen was one of them. Sam Hewen loves whiskey, and being able to send him a little care package and interview him on the show from Outlander it was fun because I feel like I'm really talking to someone that genuinely likes to drink.
Mm-hmm. He's a cool dude. I sound like a fangirl, but I had to watch that damn show because of my mother-in-law and my wife. And it's pretty fucking good, man. They went for it, and he crushed it. And I was like, man, I would, after knowing he loves, the way he and what's his name? It's awesome, rad.
Oh,
dude.
Graham McTavish.
Yeah. The way that they interact, but how much they love spirit and the process. And he's just a cool dude. I said, man, I'd hang out with this guy in a heartbeat. I mean, I probably doesn't want to hang out with a bunch of, vampire actor guys, but he seems like a really cool dude. And, Paul and I, by the way, obviously because this is a lot older, this is 8 years, but even at 108.7 proof,
it's nice.
Paul and I were drinking that. Now, clearly, it's 108.7 proof. So but you get the viscosity of it is unbelievable. And once you do swallow it, it comes back up over your palate, and coats it again because there's those fumes, right? And they're carrying all of those elements of all the grains, and you're just like, wow, man, this is it's chemistry and science and art and love, and it's all of those things together. Not to sound too kumbaya about it, but
Sure.
it is, man. It's pretty wild. It's amazing. We're really grateful to be in this business.
So one of the, and this is kind of a lot of my audience might appreciate this more, but a lot of these things are launched through Reserve Bar, but who's distributing it? When are we going to see this roll out into the States, Texas in particular?
Yeah. Ian may know the specific dates more, but we're going to be, we're launching May 1 in
California and Reserve Bar.
Yeah, and Reserve Bar, right, nationwide, right, exactly. And then we will be by the end of the year, we'll be nationwide, on premise, retail.
June 1. Here, I'll tell you right now.
Is it June 1, Texas?
June 1, Texas, and 11 states. September, end of September, we do another, I think, 13 or 17 states. Basically, by, I think, October 31, we'll be in all 50 states.
What is who's the distributor? RNDC?
RNDC.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So we have RNDC is our main, but obviously RNDC doesn't, isn't in New York, for example, or Illinois. So we have some partners over there as well.
Amazing.
Empire and but RNDC is our
RNDC is like, by the way, your distribution partners are your
lifeblood.
Family.
And they're amazing. And I'll tell you, they have been so incredible to work with. We've become so tight and such bros with so many of the execs over there and the teams. And it's been such a pleasure to get on. Ian and I are on every Zoom. We're on every call.
Zoom. Dude, we're literally, all we do other than raising my child and making sure my family is fed and that it's like, there's gas in the cars have been plugged in and charged. Other than that, this is all Paul and I do.
Yeah. And so we're like just good friends with everyone there at RNDC, and they've just been such an amazing partner to us. And
Texas, man, Texas is California, Florida, Texas, or California, Texas, Florida, in that order. Texas is such a massive market for us, and our executives are split between Texas and Toronto, believe it or not. And
a lot of our teams in Dallas.
So Dallas, Austin. I'm from New Orleans, so Texas is a neighbor. And so I'm ecstatic to start spending more time in Texas. We
have a great partner down there in Austin. Ian.
A retailer?
Yeah. Twin Liquor. They're just they're fantastic, and we talk to them all the time. And
well, we're developing some pretty unbelievable
relationships.
Yeah, and just stuff with them specifically too. They're very creative and.
Well, really, Margaret Jabor is such a such a maverick.
Yeah.
In the spirit, in the alcohol space, you realize this is a woman who, paved not a path, paved a freeway to changing a lot of things in the alcohol business for the better. And so to be able to not only just partner, but learn and sort of just be a sponge to the amount of energy and power and love that this person injects into the spirits world, or the alcohol world, is pretty special.
We get on Zooms and brainstorm and talk about all sorts of ideas, and it's not even about of course we all want to sell our bourbon, but it's really also about like how can we make this.
How can we make communities better?
How can we make this a bourbon that supports community and a spirit that supports community, and what other incentives in terms of whether it's dealing with whatever. There's charitable causes that we're going to be sort of
contributing
supporting, and contributing to, and we're sort of formulating all of that. So it's really about just being a company that's sort of for the betterment of the world, as opposed to just sort of capitalistic conversation.
Trying to sell stuff. By the way, though, man, I got to tell you, Austin's a big hub for that, and that's why
super creative. Yeah,
June 1, when this bourbon launches, a good part of the the country as well. Austin, Texas is where we're going to be that morning.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm sure you talked about this with McConaughey. McConaughey has a tremendous, not only just a body of insanely successful work and such a cool dude, I'd give anything to hang out with him and just have conversations. But that civic pride is what makes America incredible, right? That ability to go home or to build community within your community, right? To bring people back together in a civic way is everything to us, right? I'm from a small town in Louisiana. For us, being able to travel this country and meet people and find those communities and be able to build it with the success of our company, that's huge.
It's super important.
Texas
super
is
important.
like the epicenter of that for us starting June 1.
So then it's safe to assume that June 1, when you guys come, that we are going to be in the initial rollout then.
Yes.
Sweet. So one of the things I wanted to ask, since you bring up McConaughey, as a slight pivot here, I asked McConaughey after a few drinks to tell me a story, because someone who always has that confidence, right? He's always just seems like you can't make him feel uncool.
Yeah.
Tell me a story about a time in which you embarrassed yourself in front of another celebrity, or one of those stories.
I got a good one.
And he told a great story having dinner with John Malkovich and the Coen brothers, and just shoving his foot so far down his throat that he walked away like, "What did I do? What did I do?"
What did he say?
So they were working on some ideas for a movie. Obviously, the Coen brothers are absolutely legendary. John Malkovich, absolutely legendary.
Legendary.
And he was so focused on what to say next to seem like he was confident and cool that he wasn't really listening, and they weren't connecting. They just weren't jiving. And he walked away feeling like an idiot. And it was such a great moment to see like an actual sense of vulnerability from Mr. Cool himself. That when I asked Katie Sackhoff the same story, same thing. She did something similar. She went in for an audition and with Nathan Fillion, a close friend of hers, and just killed herself. So I'm curious. Has there been
it was hard to throw off balance because she's such a solid.
I've known Katie for years, by the way. She's so rad.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
We had such a great time talking.
Yeah.
And I sent her a bottle from her birth year, and it just so happened to be a bottle that her dad had in her house growing up. So for her, it was a total sense of nostalgia.
Oh, that's rad.
And it was awesome. So, but is there a story between either together or separately where you two just got knocked down a peg or were shooting yourself?
Yeah, I'll just really quickly. First thing I can think
I want to hear this. Paul typically doesn't paint himself as uncool, so I got to hear this.
Well, so I was like 17 years old, and I got a TV series, a pilot, my first pilot. For those of you who don't know what a TV pilot is, it's essentially like a trial error. Some listeners don't, the trial error before the show goes on air, whatever. So I get this TV pilot, and I fly out to Vancouver, and I'm so excited. It's like my first thing. I've never been around any, type of, major film sets. I had done some soap operas, but this was a big deal to me. Anyway, so we're all staying in Vancouver at this hotel that everyone stays at, the Sutton Place Hotel. And I'm like, oh, this is oh my God, this is so cool. It's a whole new world. And I'm in the lobby, and I don't even really know who he is, but I know he's famous, right? I'm like, that's Tony Danza. And I kind of knew who he was, but I didn't really care. At the end of the day, I just wanted a photo. This is way before iPhones. So I pulled out my camera, and I'm run up, super overzealous, so excited. And I'm like, hey, Tony Danza. Hey, my name's Paul. I'm here shooting a TV pilot. And can I just have a photo? This is so cool. So good to meet you. He was in the lobby just relaxing. And he goes, no, Paul, not right now. I'm just doing my thing. Not right now. And I didn't understand what he meant. I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, not right now. And I was like, let's just do a photo. It'll take 2 seconds.
He's the sweetest guy ever. So
he's like, no, I said no. And I was like, and I was like, why not? What do you mean? It's going to take you 2 seconds. I'm literally negotiating with Tony,
and
arguing with him. And I remember he was seated on this chair, and he stands up and he just walks up to me like 2 inches from my face, and he's like, "This isn't going to end well for you, Paul." Dude, I was like so shattered. I was so upset. I was like,
oh my God.
Tony Danza almost kicked my ass because I kept asking him over and over for a photo. And I talked about that for like years. But then I realized
17-year-old kid.
But then I realized years later, I realized I was being so annoying. And I totally understood his perspective. But, at the time I was so shattered because he was like the first like major celebrity that I had ever met and he wanted to kick my ass.
Have you seen him since?
No.
Oh my God.
No.
I've seen him many times since. I'll have to tell him.
He had a TV show for a minute, and there was a part of me when when Vampire Diaries first launched, I was like, I should go on his TV show. And I
did his show twice, and it was so fun.
Did you? I was gonna say, like, I should go on his TV show and be like, "Hey, Tony, do you remember this?" Just surprise him. I did that on Jay Leno. I went on Jay Leno, and I had a funny interaction with Jay Leno on Ventura Boulevard when we were racing cars. And when I did the pre-interview, the guy's like, "Don't. We're not going to tell Jay beforehand. Tell him on live." And it was really fun. But that was my Tony Danza story. Anyway, Ian, what about you?
Guys, I'm just super cool. A lot cooler if you did.
Yeah.
Mine goes, I've had a couple times where I may have put my foot in my mouth or said something, but mine actually goes way back to when I was 16. It wasn't more like it was a celebrity that it wasn't more of like celebrity that was more like movie star celebrity. It was more because, I spent my time from 10 to 20 in the fashion business, and I was studying acting, and I was working a bit as an actor. But when I was literally 16 years old, I was a fashion model, and I had flown to to Milan, Italy.
Nice flex, by the way.
To do what's that?
Yeah, by the way.
Yeah, nice flex, by the way.
Flex what?
Oh, I was just a fashion model, no big deal. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Well,
I was just flying to Milan. I was a fashion model.
Oh, by the way, I grew up super poor in the bayous of Louisiana, so it wasn't like a splashy. I just happened to have like.
But he was really, really, really good looking.
No,
he couldn't turn left.
No, he said. I think it's like ridiculously good.
Ridiculously.
But I was there, and I was so out of my element. I just literally come from the bayou, and it was I'll never forget. It was a Dolce & Gabbana show, and I did a lot of women's shows because usually it's like 30 basically supermodels behind a giant curtain in some castle somewhere, and like 3 or 5 dudes.
Sounds miserable.
And well, when you're 16, it was pretty unbelievable. You could be 16, it would be unbelievable, but it was pretty wild. And the long and the short of it is that I had these like black, underwear, and I was wearing this like white Dolce & Gabbana suit. And this guy comes over and yells at me, says, screams at me in this Italian accent, "You have to take those off. This is ridiculous," because I'm about to walk on the stage. Onto the runway. And so I said, "Yeah, of course. Sure, man. Okay, sir." So I rip off my pants, and the guy goes, "You have to take off your underwear, right?" It's like, "Yeah, of course." So I take off my underwear, and the guy takes it and he throws it into this pile. And so right as I went to grab my pants, this woman walks by and she goes, "Give me." And she takes the pants and she walks off and hangs them on this thing and starts steaming them. So I'm just there, completely naked.
And Tony Danza walks in.
Tony Danza walks in. And then I see Paul Wesley.
Because this isn't going to end well.
Yeah, well, when I was 16, Paul Wesley, I think, was probably about 11. And so I'm standing there and I'm going, this is so crazy. I guess I'm just going to sit here. This is wild. There's people walking all over. And all of a sudden I see this camera and it's a guy holding a microphone. It says 60 minutes. So now there's a 60 minutes camera that's panning around me and catching the sort of like cacophony of what behind it. fashion.
Definitely your cacophony. I'm sure that got on camera.
Yeah, and it was like everything just went really quiet for a second. Then to boot, one of the designer's yellow Labradors walks up to me and has a sniff. And then to boot, even after that, a set piece of someone walks by with this giant bird cage with like a yellow canary and is shielding me from this camera because they realize there's a naked kid here. So this was like my introduction to, and then
I thought you were going to say something like, and then suddenly you were introduced to like Naomi Campbell, and you're standing
there's all these famous models walking around, just sort of like being goofy, and then the designers come up and they start talking to me about this thing I have to do. Long of the short of it is, like a month later, I'm back in the United States, and I'm with my girlfriend at the time, and we're having dinner at her house, and her dad comes in the room. So he's drilling me. So I saw this video. I saw you in 60 Minutes, and I went,
wait, were you really naked on 60 Minutes?
Sheet white. Well, from the ground up, from the waist up. But you could see I was like, something was up. He goes, so I saw you in 60 Minutes. My girlfriend's dad. And I just went sheet white. And I had to explain the whole thing. But I do remember that feeling of, wow, all right, this is actually happening. I'm going to roll with this. I got this. It wasn't, but then having to talk to at the time, those guys were super crazy, huge, famous. But that was my Tony Danza story of,
yeah. Well, and I know we've got a couple minutes and then we've got to let you guys go, but Paul, there's the other bottle in that package was bottled the year you were born.
Whoa, 1950?
Wait, this?
Yeah, was it 82, I believe?
Oh, yeah, 82. This was
what?
In 82?
So the liquid in that bottle has been in that bottle since the day you were born.
Hold it up, Paul. Let me see.
Well, but it's a straight bourbon whiskey.
Yeah. So it's what I'm saying is it was bottled that year, right?
Wow.
So straight bourbon, which means it was distilled a few years before you were born.
Wow.
And then Ian, in your package is a bottle from the year you were born, from
1978.
1978, and I brought a bottle for us. The general idea was for us to share a pour. This bottle's from 1976, so it's before all of us were born.
Now I'm gutted. Oh my gosh, dude.
So I figured you could open it and try it, Paul, and we could celebrate y'all's success. And
how great is that, man? This is from
what a special
bottled in 1982, huh?
1982 and 1978. And what was crazy is, so we carry a quite the collection, kind of I don't want to say archive because it sounds douchey, but we've got a few shelves of old dusties that those two bottles, I'm sitting there and I'm looking for birth year bottles for both of you. And they just happen to be sitting right next to each other.
Oh,
Y'all's two birth year bottles were just on the shelf sitting next to each other for the last couple of years. The liquid there has been there since before you were born. And
how phenomenal.
And now here's the thing, no promises that it's good.
Man, how cool.
Dude, I gotta tell you, man, that not to sound all just goofy about it, but man, that warms my heart. I'm so thankful. What a thoughtful. I'm really pissed that I didn't pick this up.
But it's okay. Don't feel bad. Just what get your package, enjoy it. You guys can share a pour from those birth year bottles together. I just wanted to say thank you for coming. I wanted to thank you for all of your success, or not thank you for your success, but congratulate you on your success. And I look forward to seeing what you guys have coming.
Man, thank you so much for having us and for this fantastic gift and
what a gesture,
cheers, man.
Yeah. Listen, by the way, and I think I speak for Paul and I, we thank and salute you for being who you are, and congrats on your success, because this show is no joke, man. And what you're doing, you've created this whole space for yourself and for all of us to enjoy. So thank you, man.
Cheers, guys. Thanks again.
Brother. Cheers, brother.
Balcones' first ever year-round bourbon was an inspiration. It all had to work together. A blend of carefully selected ingredients, Texas-sized pot stills, and creative people determined to find the absolute best way to usher a new whiskey along. when you discover how it pairs with a meaningful moment, suddenly the feeling of drinking great whiskey becomes a whole lot more.